Hello and welcome to the Texas Justice Review. My name is Minoirty your host. Today we want to talk about two judges in Dallas, but specifically Judge Hoffman, Judge Martin Hoffman. I just, it's very difficult for me getting back into the business of exposing things that are happening. I try to give people a fair chance. I used to do political news, political corruption. Now I'm doing judicial stuff. Something that you would never see anywhere else is what I'm doing here right now. So this is Judge Martin Hoffman. This is Judge Snipes, Michael Snipes. Here's what happened this morning. Today is October 11th, 2024. And I was in court with him this morning. I'm before him. Before you go to a court, you have to send a whole bunch of stuff for them to read. And, you want to make sure that they have everything that they can. And hopefully they read it. So I sent him all this stuff. He's supposed to have sat down and read it and read it and read it. He didn't. So I showed up in court. My spouse, there was 2 default judgments that stemmed out of Michael Snipes, this guy, courtroom. Him and I have been butting heads. I'm a publisher. He is a former prosecutor in the Dallas District Attorney's Office. When Faith Johnson lost and the new guy took over, I can't remember his name right now. But anyway, when he took over, 12 investigators were fired, and he was given the right to retire to save his name. John Crusoe is the DA. So I've been he is a district court judge, criminal court judge in family court. So I go to this guy because I filed a complaint. I filed a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit against my spouse, against her attorney for abusing their position for fraud, defrauding in the courtroom. And let me tell you what happens. In a family court, you're limited. You're limited in family court to division of property, children, pets, whatever it is. But when there's an element of fraud and deception, it actually is a civil complaint, and you can file these civil complaints. But if the judge is not familiar with that, you try to tell him. And so here's some of the things that I filed in the civil complaint against the spouse and her attorney. Concealment of assets and fraud belonging to the plaintiff to defraud him. That's not available. There's a contempt charge in family court, but not the return of the funds and all this kind of stuff. And fraudulent filing of a financial statement to defraud the plaintiff. That is not available in family court. Obstruction of justice and administration of law to defraud the plaintiff. That is not available in family court. And there's a whole explanation as to why they obstructed justice. So if you go back to family court, it's obstruction of justice, and said, I don't do that here. I'm just here to sign off on your divorce, and you guys figure it out. Defamation to damage and defraud the plaintiff. That is not available in family court. Obstruction and falsifying records, actual malice, due process violation to defraud the plaintiff. Due process is not available in family court. It's a civil matter, and you explain why they violated the due process in the 14th Amendment. And misleading communication in, legal ground, due process violation, giving false and misleading information in illegal proceedings to commit fraud against the plaintiff. That is not available in family court. Unlawful surveillance to defraud the plaintiff, not available. Theft of property and pets could be, but this judge, he's a criminal court judge. He doesn't know. He doesn't care. He's just letting them steal and take whatever they want. Filing a false temporary order of protection disguised to defraud the plaintiff for his property assets. Because it's fraud, it falls under civil procedures. And giving false medical information about the plaintiff to defraud him, that is in a civil court. That there's no remedy in family court for that. Retaliation, filing unnecessary false claim to deprive, not available in family court. And I'm reading this out. That is not available in family court. because I have a point. Criminally shutting down the plaintiff electricity, that's a criminal thing. And whatever you can file criminally, you can file civilly. Harassment to gain a benefit and defraud the plaintiff, whatever you can file harassment criminally, you can do it civilly, not in family court. Return of unnecessary spending and billings for funds used to defraud the plaintiff, not family court. Intentional negligence to deprive the plaintiff. And these things are explained. They're not just headings. There's a whole explanation as to how and why they did that. And let's see, invasion of privacy, not available in family court to defraud the plaintiff. Breach of agreement, fraud to sell the house and deprive the payment, the plaintiff. And it goes on. And fraudulent misrepresentation, taking money by deceptive practice, unnecessary litigation, and false claims to deceive and defraud the plaintiff. So there's an explanation. Let's see this explanation. Let's see, defendant, blah, 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 with the intention to obtain a benefit for herself and with the intent to harm and defraud the plaintiff, did commit the act of theft by deception from the family material funds, where the defendant is in illegal proceedings, gave false and misleading information to obstruct the rights of the plaintiff, whereas hundreds of thousands of dollars involved, where the defendant was consistently engaged in unnecessary filing, appearance, and email communication in order to gain money from the marital funds. So this is fraud. Family code doesn't have fraud. If you look at the family code, it doesn't have this. So this is available for civil proceedings. And there was a case in New York where a wife went outside the proceedings and sued her husband for $1 billion for hiding assets. Now, they didn't say, hey, you need to take that back to family court. They said, it's applicable if you're trying to defraud her. So I go to court today, October 11th. The judge comes up. He takes one look at her, takes one look at me. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to hide her face for, because sometimes you have to hide the identity of the person. That's what she looks like. Right? He takes a look at her, and she's all dressed up, dolls up, white, gender, race, and looks at me, and you can see the disappointment in his face when he looks at me. And I said, and I'm new to my head, oh, great. So anyway, he asked me, okay, so to explain yourself. And I started telling him about the case. This is a fraud case. It's not, because out of his mouth, this is a family court case. He said, if you already made your mind up, why didn't you just make your decision before you even come to court? Why did you have to call us into court? You could have done it by submission. And so we go into court, and he was done. He just says, when I tried telling him what happened, he said he couldn't understand. Okay, well, why don't you just wait and let me finish? As he cut me off, and he asked her, and she read out this whole thing about my past from New Jersey. In New Jersey, I fought for people's rights. In New Jersey, I filed to fight for blacks and minorities in that community. And she brought up some Sony thing. Yes, Sony had documents that I wanted, and I sued them to get the documents because the judge says that's the only way you're going to get it. Brought that up. It was a Christian thing. I was defending Christian rights. So she targeted my Christian faith. She targeted my fighting for the black community, targeted me fighting for the people's rights and defending my newspaper, and just trashed me and called me mentally something. I was like, what? I wanted to respond, and he told me no. And I asked for a copy of the letter. He told me, well, at the end, there's a certain strategy you use to see if a judge is on your side or if they're prejudiced against you. And because I'm a minority, and they're white, Southern white Democrats, you have to know prejudice will play a part in any of their decisions. So you have to use tactics. Like God used tactics all the time to go after the enemies. You have to use tactics to bring these people out. And so I stood in this courtroom and didn't read a word of what I filed. Because he says, I don't know either one of you. Because I tried telling him, I said, look, she was saying that I'm a serial litigator. I'm always filing recusals from judges. No. I didn't get to explain that. What happened is, and I tried to tell them, they constantly were taking my social media stuff and ramming it down this judge's face And then they were ramming it down two other judges' face, Kim Brown and her associate, and then igniting them to go after me. And it has nothing to do with the case. So they had to be recused. 6 minority judges looked at their case and says, we want nothing to do with you. And then they ended up with this guy. So they're saying I'm the fault for all 7 judges recusing themselves. No. All 7 judges read what I wrote about what you did with the first 2 judges, and they want nothing to do with you. But somehow that is spinned around to make me look bad. And I'm sitting in the courtroom and I said, look, I got to rebuttal this. And he goes, no. I said, okay, so I guess you made your decision. And I just was like, I need to rebuttal this. No. Case is finished. And he goes, oh, by the way, who is the family court judge in this case? And then I said, he wants the case number. I didn't have it. And he says, Michael Snipes. And he says, oh, he's got Michael Snipes on speed dial. And then he calls him in front of me and in front of the court. While the proceedings are going on, he's calling him. So you have an alleged civil court judge calling a criminal court judge illegally in family court. And he even said, when I said, Michael Snipes, he goes, he's not a family court judge. I said, exactly. So somebody put him there to make money, and he's been wreaking havoc on my life. I am a publisher. I believe there's only one reason God will put me in direct conflict with this guy and the other judges, and that is to publish what I find. So it doesn't matter if I win or lose. I'm not here to win or lose. I'm here to unmask. That's like Jesus says, if I had not come, you'd have no sin, but now I come, you have no cloak for your sin. So whatever they're hiding is now coming out. So he calls him in front of me. And I was like, that is strange. You're a district court judge. Make your own decision. You're supposed to say, I don't care what the other judge does. This is my courtroom. This is my decision. And my decision is, you're a minority, you get nothing. She's white, she gets everything. Whatever your excuse may be. Okay? But he calls him and he didn't answer. So during the proceeding at the end, he calls him back. They've got each other's personal phone number. And then he takes the call, hey, Michael, how you doing? And they go in the back and they have their secret conversation about me, right? So there's a secret conversation about me happening in the back room. Now just remember, this guy, he's sitting in family court, promised to have me arrested if I tell the jury what he did wrong to defraud me. So the fraud is on him. And it goes to the spouse, it goes to the lawyer who perpetrated it. And so he wants to arrest me. He wants to destroy my life. He's giving everything away to the spouse, telling her, as even though I am an avowed Christian husband, that she can have sex with whatever, while married to me, she can go in and have sex with whoever she wants to have sex with. That's Texas law. Wrong. Texas law is you don't go out and start looking to have sex with men for money and rich guys and then turn around and sue and then say you want everything and get everything. It is the person you are committing adultery against, which is in my complaint, so this is not new. They get to sue you. I get to sue. And I get the remedies of what the lying, cheating, deceiving person does. I get that remedy. But he switched it. Everything to her, the pets, the property, the money, everything. And so 100% for committing adultery is what he did, because he got pissed off of me that I said you need to recuse yourself, because he keeps dragging me back into court with them. Every 5 minutes, dragging me back into court, dragging me back into court. And then she goes and she tells this guy, I'm the one filing all the frivolous stuff. No, the stuff that I'm filing is responses to the things that keep dragging me. Motion to bring him back, motion to do this, motion to take all the property, motion to take all of the pets, consistently. And I had to respond to that, so how can a defendant be a serial litigator? But they brought us stuff in New Jersey where I was fighting for blacks and minorities, and I sued the council members, one lawsuit, and she's bringing that up. Somebody who promised Jesus Christ is going to stand by me and never defeat me and never betray me and never lie is doing it in a court. And he is listening to this nonsense. And if she's telling you I sue people and I go after them, you should be worried, right? But anyway, they're having a conversation about me. And I'm in the courtroom. And the conversation is in the back room. Then he comes back and he says, well, I just spoke to Michael. And of course you did. And you shouldn't have been. You should not have been conspiring with another judge about me, especially a publisher, okay, who's investigating the system. And now I'm in this case showing the reality of it. And so the thing is, why are two judges conspiring and having secret conversations in the case? And this judge never read the complaint. That's nothing to do with family law, doesn't apply there. And there's another case that went to New York where a wife sues the husband. They sues the husband for $1 billion in state court. Why didn't the state court say you need to go back to family court? Because it's an appropriate lawsuit civilly when it is fraud. But they don't care. He shows up on a Friday. He says, I don't know either one of you. Of course you don't know either one of me, but because if you read these complaints, if you've read my complaint, and by the way, we were here for a default judgment. If the default judgment says she picked a letter, right? The attorney is also sued on this case. And the judge, Maria Severas, I hope I'm not butchering her name, returned a two-page trick pony letter that she filed as an answer, because she's also sued for fraud, the attorney Veronica Warner. And so that judge, Maria, kicked back this very letter and said, this is not an appropriate filing. We're returning this letter to you. Apparently I had 22 different counts. I read some of you with this one, and she has a different count because she's a lawyer. And the judge wanted her to address each one of the counts, because you're going to have a balance when you take it to the jury. You got to say, look, he filed this, she filed this, and he answered. That's the law, 21 days to answer. And so the jury can see the answer, the filing and the response. Count number 2, this happened. Count number 3, and she responded. Count number 4. But a 2-page trick pony letter is not going to work for Judge Maria Aceves. So she sent it back. And then the attorney goes, I'm not going to send her notice. You need to respond. The third notice, didn't respond, doesn't care. And so this one, and before this guy, took the same letter that was rejected and gave it to him. But I don't know if he was helping Michael Snipes in the beginning, or if he knows he's a Democratic friend, and what was going on. But maybe he did read my complaint and say, well, first of all, he spelled my name wrong. Actually, no, I did spell his name right, H-O. And Hoffman. And so I don't know what he read, if he read it, and then deemed me that this is the family court case, but it doesn't make sense. If you're reading the fraud cases, the fraud elements, it doesn't make sense. But he just destroyed another pro se's life by finding him. He does stuff really quick, because when this was happening and she made a speech about me, and in the end she says I was mentally disturbed or something, and I was like, okay, no, I go after public corruption. If anybody sees a doctor and mentally is you. I didn't get to respond to that. Ultimately, I wanted, and I'm very smart. If I'm in your courtroom or anywhere else and I'm acting dumb and stupid, it's because I'm pulling you out. I know Columbo does that. I do it in a different way. So he's probably thinking I'm stupid. Look at this guy, coming here, and within 40 seconds of me trying to tell him what my case is about, he cut me off. Wants to hear from her. She read a bullshit letter, excuse my language. And then that's it, we're done. And then called Michael Snipes, and then while we were about to leave, he calls back and they're having a private conversation. So I want to know what the ethics board will think about this. If you are a judge, and this happens all the time, if he was a Republican and you were a Democrat, would you call him? Would you call him if he was a Republican and you were a Democrat? No, you're a buddy system in the same political party. So let's just say he was a Republican and he's a Democrat, and he said, I don't believe in just a Republican was one of the new Republican judges that we got. He wouldn't call him. He would say, who's the thing? Well, his name is Joe Samuels. And it says, well, isn't Joe Samuels a criminal court judge? Yes, and what does he do in family court? Exactly. And because he doesn't talk to Joe, he wouldn't call Joe. He would just say, look, this is the family court case that came to me. The expression of fraud is here. This guy said he was defrauded. Let's look at this. I'm looking at the 19 counts here, sir, and I see there's an element of fraud. He did ask me if this was a business. It's not in a business as a whole, but there's a $30,000 business fraud in here that I didn't think about at the time. $30,000 from my business she took and stole and didn't want to give it back. And so anyway, he's on this case. He didn't read it, didn't care, just showed up on a Friday. And this is a publisher. And I think the reason that, God sends someone like me, a minority, is because he knows that they're going to disrespect me based on my continent and not the case. And here is how I tested him. In the end, when she read her nonsense letter, they keep saying vexation. And I'm like, vexation? You're the one that's constantly dragging me through the mud and the muck and stealing the money. So I asked him, can I have a copy of the letter? And that was the key element to find out if he was prejudiced and biased. And so he said no. And then I knew. If it was a fair judge, the first thing he would have done is says, look, I don't care what the family court judge said. You're in my courtroom now. My courtroom said this is a civil proceeding. And if this is a civil proceeding, I got to take it as a civil proceeding. I got to look at it. I got to go over it, make sure it is a civil proceeding and not a family court proceeding. Evidently, I'm reading the elements of it here, and it looks like fraud. This is not available. So if he's talking to Michael Snipes there, he should ask him, are any one of these remedies available in your courtroom? And then read it out to him. Look, there's a remedy for this. There's a remedy for fraud, deception, giving false and misleading information, harassment. Is there a remedy for harassment? Well, no, I don't really give up harassment. I just sign divorce papers and I just let them agree what they have to agree. Okay, so what element of this case do you cover? Obstruction of justice. Does family court cover obstruction of justice and administration of law to defraud a person? Well, no, they really don't cover that. We just do division of assets and I sign off the divorce. Then it's your case. It's your case. And so he doesn't want to get the case or take the case. I have a feeling it's because I was a minority. I have a feeling because I was pro se, because he punished a pro se for $21 million. And I don't see the law being executed here. At the end of it, he says he's going to go back. Still going to go back and talk to Michael. I don't know, maybe they'll have breakfast and lunch. And my suspicion is that him and Michael is going to come up with a plan and a plot to kick this case out back to Michael, where Michael Snipes cannot do a fraud element in the case. So if he kicks it back, a fraudulent filing of a financial statement to defraud the plaintiff, he doesn't have jurisdiction over that. So there's going to be a lot of big problems if he sends this back to family court, when family court does not have an applicable law or remedy to what I filed in civil court. And so they don't have harassment. They don't have a criminal element. Because when I spoke to the prosecutor, and I did speak to the prosecutor about this case, they told me anything that you can file criminally, you can file civilly. So if they criminally file a false temporary order of protection disguised to defraud you for your property assets and stuff like that, if it's criminal, it's civil. That's what the prosecutor's office said. Anything you can file criminal, and that's why, when cops get out of hand, you can, criminal charges and then civil charges. But not family. Family law is a different element, and I've learned that. And he doesn't know about family law, so he's going to take anything. He's just trying to shut me down. He's just trying to shut me up. And now he's got an ally. So now I got two white judges, southern judges. Takes one look at her, blonde hair, green eyes, dressed up, looking like them, looking at me, and you can clearly see the prejudice. You can clearly see the bias. If just Judge Martin does not want a case, pass it on to another judge. But to deprive me of justice, to not just me, I open stuff up. I'm gonna die soon. I'm not as young as you think. The road ahead of me is very short. It's shorter than a long one behind me. And I have never have a newspaper for money or for fame or for, you know, people being well known, even though I get that, and when I got that a lot in New Jersey, anybody go to Patterson and ask who is surrounded, they'll tell you, they'll first roll their eyes and they'll go, wow, yeah, that guy used to go after politicians, you know. I fought for people, and to have that used against me, that I'm a frivolous litigator, and he's gone for that, that's disturbing. It's disturbing by somebody I'm supposed to trust. And it's disturbing that the court would even think about stuff like that without asking me, what does this mean? I was fighting for blacks and minorities, who happened to be a white wife that wouldn't move with me in Patterson, New Jersey, because she thinks black folks would kill her and rape her, and that's why I didn't get to become mayor. Yet I gave up $129,000 salary a year. By the way, that is also in this case that family court does not cover. He didn't read the complaint. If he read the complaint, he would have seen this is different from family court. You're an experienced judge and you can't see that? Doesn't make sense. Then somebody was telling me, don't publish a video about him. Maybe he'll change. No, he won't change his mind. I know these judges. He already said he's sending this back, indicated he was sending this back to Michael Snipes, a criminal court judge, in family court. Neither one of them knows what's going on. And anyway, he's not the only one that does this. A lot of Democratic judge who just got elected because of Beto is doing this. That's why the Republicans are sending out all kind of stuff. There's a PAC, a Republican PAC that is sending out things. And they're called the Justice Fairness PAC. And they're going after all these judges, right? They're going after them because of the very thing that happened to me. And they talk about they're soft on crime. No, they're soft on, you see a white woman come into the courtroom and, you know, her spouse is the person of color, and she's the one doing all the wickedness, all the evil, to be with these, whoever she said she wants to be with, in your face. She wasn't keeping that a secret, by the way. And now she's crying, hey, you know, she's doing all this. This is something that the Republicans are sending out. And if I can blow this up, I can't. Anyway, it says, soft on crime Democrat judges have made Dallas a haven for criminals. Shocking. A vote skipped is a vote for a soft on crime Democratic judge. So this PAC is going after these Democratic judges. And my newspaper covered the minority community. That's what I fought for. But I think the Republicans might have something here. But the problem is, I don't go after judges per political party. Hey, because you're a Democratic judge, I'm not going to support you, or, publishing. I'm not going to do that, because there's another judge that I like by the name of Rachel Craig, and I think they're trying to influence her. And I got a video on that coming. And there's another judge by the name of Stacey Williams. She wants to be the chief judge, but the Democratic Party hates, not the Democratic Party. People in the clique of the Democratic judges don't like her. And that's the best judge that you can have. One that it cannot be controlled. One that cannot be influenced. One that you can't have, authority over to tell what to do. Just like Michael Snipes here can go and tell his buddy, hey, I want you to throw this case because this guy and I are in a conflict, and now that you and I are buddies, and he's in your courtroom and you're telling me this, I need you to do me a favor. Kick it back to me so I can kick him in the head. That's basically what's going to happen here. And I say that now on October 11th. So when it happens and Michael Snipes coincide with this judge, you would see that I told you this was going to happen. I know this stuff. I've tangled with corrupt judges before. I'm not saying he's corrupted. I'm just saying I've tangled with judges who act like this outside of the law, never read complaints, just showed up and said, hey, tell me 2 minutes. I can write very well. But sometimes when I'm in a courtroom, I'm angry. I am angry because I know, especially before a white judge, I get angry fast. Because I'm not Republicans, so because these Democrats, I know what they're going to do. I know how they're going to decide on the case. And Rachel Gray, she was supposed to decide on the, Rachel Craig, decided the case on the 30th. She didn't, because I sent her a motion that checked her. And I hope they're not trying to influence her. If he sends his case back to Michael Snipe and doesn't even respect the rule of law on fraud and what I sent him, so now we have an appeal. And I am worried that Snipes is going to call him up and say, hey, I want you to fine this guy $1,000, teach him a lesson, and all this kind of stuff. This is where the danger of these judges come in. When they start talking to one another. Why would you call another judge in front of me in the courtroom? Why would you do that? It means the decision is now going to be that judge's. It means now you're going to listen to what he has to say and conspire to kick the case back to him. That's not supposed to happen. A judge is supposed to be independent in his decision in the actions that he makes. I have criminal charges against Michael Snipes, and it's sitting in the prosecutor's office. That's why any communication with another judge and him that I have in a courtroom will be destructive. I'm looking for the canon rule of law where judges are not supposed to conspire with lawyers and other judges. And he should have never called Michael Snipe in front of me. And I know people told me, listen, don't say anything, he's going to try. It doesn't care. It doesn't matter to me. Once I know how a judge is going to rule and dismiss my case and not follow the rule of law, these videos are coming out. Because and Michael Snipes is the same thing. The only reason I'm not in jail right now is because I did a video like this. He was going to try to have me arrested when I went to court on June 10th, after June 10th, July 10th. And the day that I did that video, he shut his mouth. Now he's trying to use my case to target me, sell my house from under me, destroy my life. So that's the fight that I'll have with the judges. I'm a publisher, they're judges. The ones that get elected to office, that's the one I'm going after, especially if I know that you have a complaint before you within your jurisdiction. As required in Rule number 474B, Texas Rule of Law Civil Procedures, plaintiff and counsel state that the damages sought are in the amount within the jurisdiction limits of this court. As required by Rule number 47C, Texas Rules of Civil Procedure, plaintiff states that the plaintiff seeks monetary damages, and it goes into talk about the jurisdiction of the court. So if the court has jurisdiction, and it says so within the law, why are you sending this case back to Michael Snipes, who is looking to dismiss everything that I filed that is legitimate, just to retaliate against me and punish me because I filed a motion to recuse him for doing the very thing? Retaliation. So this is Judge Martin Hoffman. This is what he's done to me. Not reading any of the complaints that I filed, not respecting civil law, treating me differently in his courtroom than my white spouse, denying me information, denying me relevant things that if you put something in court, I'm entitled to a copy of it, and denying me the First Amendment right to speak, because after she spoke, I have a right to rebuttal. And he told me, no, you don't get to speak. You don't get anything. This is how he spoke to me. So the thing about me is, when we go into this kind of conflict, we're going to be joined at the hip. And what's going to happen is, if I have a case that goes before any judge, they're going to call each other up. And that's why the Republicans created a pact with $11 million to change the Democratic judges in Dallas County. Because the crimes that they're committing and the offenses are not just with criminals on the street and letting them walk. It's in other issues and avenues, especially when you're a minority. There's 3 other minorities who went before Michael Snipes and his boss, Ray Wheeler's, and there was a criminal complaint also against him that the prosecutor is sitting on and saying, well, we can't prosecute these guys because they're our buddies. That's what's going on in Dallas. I have 3 illegal judges that is connected to this case. Judge Leona, Judge Kim Brown, and Judge Michael Snipes. And they're still there because there's nobody watching the courts. Nobody watching the Democrats. And I hope that the Republicans who are putting up this $11 million is able to finance some kind of structure to keep tabs on them, so when the election comes along, you can expose what they have done and deprive minorities of a fair trial and vindication for what the wickedness, the lying, the stealing, the deception, the fraud that is committed against them by cunning and crafty people, spouses. And in reading letters that was not even factual, and I asked for a copy and he was denied me. So this is Sir Ronald Keith Balgi. I'm going to update you on what Judge Hoffman's decision is. My gut feeling is that it's not going to be good. For me, it's going to favor her and it's going to favor Judge Snipes. Because to call another judge in front of me when it's your decision to make, you know, it's like in a salesperson, you're speaking to the husband at the end of the conversation. He says, well, I got to check with my wife. But aren't you the decision maker? No, I got to check with her. You know, this is what's going on in a courtroom. Judges calling judges, buddy system going on. And if you have a legitimate case that was just supposed to be a motion for default judgment, and that's all she should have kept it. It's a default judgment, and I'm denying the default judgment because the letter, even though it was rejected there, is accepted here. Now let's talk about the case. But he just went after, the minute he saw me, he was just like, I'm dismissing this. This is Sir Ronald Keith Balgi. Thanks for watching. And bye for now.